Good morning from Vietnam, Jennifer. Good afternoon to you. Thanks a lot for spending your late afternoon, early evening to join our program and share your amazing stories to our global audience. And on behalf of the listeners around the world, we want to say thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's fun to be on the other side of the world, even virtually.
Virtually, and then one day we're going to meet in person, right?
I
Now
know
you
we
have a
will.
new friend. You have a new family here. So if you decided to travel to Southeast Asia, go to the country that you yet been there. So Vietnam, put it on the bucket list, okay?
Well, we shouldn't say if I decide, it's when I decide. I'll be heading straight to you. So be careful what you offer.
We're ready anytime. and and Jennifer, thanks a lot for marking this interview the 1111. So for number one
Isn't that like that's good luck, as I understand, right? When it's
yeah,
that many numbers all the same.
yeah, and it's good luck, and it's a sign that we're gonna be seeing each other sometime very very soon.
I believe it.
Yes, yes. And since you've been to Singapore, you've been to Thailand through the works that you've been traveling the world, right? You know that in our culture in Asia, it's very honored if we can have you to share a little bit about who you are and the works you've been doing. Jennifer, please do that first.
Well, where do you want me to start? Because it could be a really long story if I start too early. So where can I begin?
Whatever you want the people to first impression and remember about you.
Well, since you shared the theme of your interviews is really about how you find your purpose and the inspiration that comes with that, I'll share that my initial desire when I went to graduate school, so I went to Thunderbird International Business School, and I wanted to be ambassador to France. I'm half French. My father's French. My French grandmother lived with us when I was little. And so it seemed very plausible to me that I could be ambassador to France. And my father encouraged this. He thought it would be great if his daughter became ambassador to France. Thankfully for me, I had a professor at Thunderbird. He was my international marketing research professor who asked me what I planned to do when I graduated from Thunderbird. And I said, well, I'm going to become ambassador to France. And his answer was, well, if anyone could do that, Jennifer, you could, but you might want to have a fallback plan. And he said it without crushing my dreams, but I quickly realized that in order to become ambassador to France, the path to that was becoming wildly successful in a business, supporting someone who becomes president and then getting appointed to become ambassador to France. So it wasn't going to be through the foreign service, which was what I originally thought. So I say that only because it is part of my backstory. I'm thankful that by being half French, going to France every summer, I grew up with multicultural sensibilities. I grew up understanding both the American side of me and the French side of me. And I don't think I quite realized how valuable that was until I was at Thunderbird, until actually I was even in business. Mm-hmm. And I recognized it made me much more open and inclusive without realizing that was a thing, and until I was in business, because I'd grown up that way, understanding that all cultures look at things differently, and then it's a benefit to you if you listen to how other cultures look at something. It makes you more creative, more innovative, and it really influenced my overall career in every way. So I'd say that's a very long answer to your question, but that's a little bit about me.
Wow, that's a very beautiful introduction. You share with us your goals to be an ambassador to France, right? And we're gonna travel time together. We're gonna examine where that dream came from and how that journey leading to to become the CEO's whisperers today. Okay, so how does the idea of traveling time sound to you?
Sounds fun.
All right, I'll lead the way and we dance together. Okay.
Okay.
When I was little, I grew up in a very poor community in the middle of a country in my country. So it's called Da Nang City, and it's right in the middle, and that is where the war is hitting us the most in the country. So so when I grew up, we didn't have electricity every day. So we had one day, and the next day or two, we're not having it. So my only entertainment at night is when the moon really, go up and then you can see things clearly. And my first dream about the world was, when I grow, I wanted to be an astronaut and traveling to the moon and see how bright up there. But life did not give me any opportunity to pursue that dream, except that during the past 4 years, I've been interviewed a lot of astronauts from NASA, from all over the world, and one of them is the youngest man ever walked on the moon. How privileged, right? So for Jennifer, when you were little, what was your first dream about the world and the things that Jennifer is going to do when she grows up?
Well, you think I was kidding. I like from the age of 8, I thought ambassador to France. Like that to me was a plausible career. My father was in international sales and would travel a lot. And we, as a family, would travel to France to visit my grandmother. And I can't remember if it was a TV show or what it was, but I remember thinking I wanted to be the bridge between the United States and France. I think it was because I would go for summers to France and spend them with friends of my father's. And oftentimes I picked up that it wasn't always a positive relationship between the U.S. and France, and so I thought, oh, I could be the bridge. I speak French and I speak English, and I understand both. It's interesting. My father said I've always had diplomatic tendencies, so I think that's really what made me think, oh, I would love to be that bridge between the United States and France.
Wow, wow. So. So you wanted to become, at 8 years old, up until the moment that your teacher at graduate school told you about having different options and things like that. There are many years in between, right? And from that many years, there could be anything happen along the way that can take one person from having one dream to the next dream to the next dream to the next dream, right? So how could that 8 years old little Jennifer keep having that curiosity and the courage to carry that dream for so long?
Well, we've not met in person, but if you met me in person, I'm very goal driven. So I was thinking, okay, this is what I want, and I think I have a decent shot, because I thought at the time, particularly as an 8-year-old, I thought, I speak French. I speak English. I've been to France. I've lived in the United States. What more do you need for ambassador to France, right? Like that was in my head. And even when I went to college, I created a degree that didn't even exist at my college. So I went to the University of Illinois, and they didn't have a degree in international relations. So I created one. Wow. I took political science and French. I majored in both poli-sci and French, so I got double the degree. I have a double Bachelor of Arts, and I got a minor in marketing because I thought that would be good to qualify for international relations, that would be a good international relations degree. And I went straight from college to Thunderbird. Typically, a graduate school wants you to have worked a couple of years before you go to graduate school. And I was deferred, I think, a year or a semester for Thunderbird, and I drove to Thunderbird from my American grandmother's house in Tucson. I drove up to Thunderbird, which is based in Phoenix, Arizona, and I met with the dean of admissions to say, I don't want to wait. I don't want to be deferred. I would like to come to Thunderbird now. I have dreamed about going to Thunderbird since I was 8 years old. This is part of me wanting to become ambassador to France. Please let me in. And he still remembers. I have connected with him on LinkedIn. He said, I still remember that interview. He said, you were charming and one determined young lady. So he said, all right. So I went straight from college to Thunderbird. And thankfully, I had a professor who was gracious and kind and just said, hey, if the whole ambassador thing doesn't work out, you're really good in marketing, so you might want to try that.
Jennifer, because my wife and I, we've been trying to make some sense of the world in our way and in our opportunity to meet so many people in our journey of interviewing experts, right? So I want to know, inside of you, where did that tenacity, the level of commitment comes from? Is it through the nature, or is nurture, or is it in the DNA, from the family culture? Where is it coming from?
I always think it's nature and nurture. My father was, as I mentioned, international sales.
Mm-hmm.
My mom was a model, a Chicago fashion model in the 60s and the 70s. And I saw her overcome a lot of rejection. I mean, people have a tendency to think, oh, models, they have it so easy. You're beautiful and you show up for a photo shoot and you get paid a lot of money. And that is a very small percentage of models. And my mother was absolutely beautiful, but she had her fair share of rejection because sometimes they just want a different look for their print campaign or their ad. And so I think both between seeing my father being successful because he was in international sales, and seeing how my mom was resilient through a lot of things, I think definitely I have it as part of my core DNA, but seeing them, and they treated me and my sister like adults from when we were very little. No question was, well, you're too young for that. Every question was answered honestly, and I do believe that had a huge impact on my belief that I could do anything, because I was always treated like an adult, that I could do anything. And I give both my parents credit for that.
Wow. So if you became the ambassador to France, right? So what do you think that Jennifer would do, or would offer? What difference?
Well, I kind of got to live that. So when I was hired by Navtech, known as Navigation Technology. So now you use digital maps probably everywhere, right? In your car, on your phone. But back in the late 90s and early 2000s, digital maps were not ubiquitous. They weren't everywhere. You still had to get out a paper map to look at that to figure out how to drive your car to get from point A to point B. And so when I joined Navtech, I moved to France with my husband and my two little kids, 1 and 3 years old. And so I believe I got to live out some of my dreams of being an ambassador, because the first thing I did was both of our children went to French public school. They didn't go to the American school in Paris. I plopped them both into a French public school. I thought, if you're really going to learn another culture, the only way to do that is to go to a school with other French kids, not with kids from around the world, as nice as that would have been. So no disrespect to that, but I wanted my kids to understand that part of their background. And for me, that made such a big impact. My daughter is now fluent in French. My son, less so. He understands French, but he doesn't speak it. He was too little, unfortunately, to really pick up the language. He was still learning English, so trying to learn French and English at the same time was a challenge. But I do feel that if I had been ambassador, I kind of lived out the dreams of ambassadorship by being open to other cultures. My team was pan-European. I had French, British, German members on my team. I traveled all around Europe as the head of marketing for Navtech. And I think just staying curious and open and always wanting to learn, to me, that's what you would expect of any ambassador, that you don't just bring knowledge, but you're learning about another culture. And my children have become the same way. They're very multicultural. And for me, that's I feel like I've did my ambassador job that way.
You did it well, not just to France, to the rest of Europe, every country that you travel through works, and you let that, you have been living that dream at the 8 years old, right? Jennifer, since we're still in the time traveling mode, okay, allow me to bring you to whenever that day that the professor from Thunderbird University, the school, right, told you about maybe you need to prepare for option B. All right. So you still remember that day? Where were you?
I was in his classroom.
Okay.
I had just done well on a test, and that's when he asked me, so what are you planning to do on graduation? And I think he thought I was going to go into marketing in some way, shape, or form. So I know he was a bit shocked when I said, I'm going to be ambassador to France.
Yeah, I think, Jennifer, I want to bring you to that point because in life, right, there's a lot of people who see the potential inside of us, and they will give us some words of advice, and sometimes the words of advice becomes discouragement for what we've been wanting to do. And I believe that advice from the professor is like something that really changed the trajectory for you also, because you've been having that dream for a long time as an ambassador to France, and now you say to prepare for something else, right? I want to bring you to that classroom, and what thinking happened in your head when you heard the advice?
Well, I think in the moment, it didn't really register. I think I just took it as a data point. And I thought, okay, that's interesting advice. I'll take it under counsel. I share it with you now because clearly my brain stored it as an important data point. But in the moment, I thought, okay, that's good for him to think that. I took another class at Thunderbird called International Advertising, InterAd, which was a very competitive program to get into. It was a semester-long class, and I had no concept of advertising until I took that class. But I'm kind of competitive by nature, and I thought, all right, I'm going to work to get into it, because at the time I was enjoying marketing. I was doing well in marketing, and I thought, okay, if the pinnacle of marketing is to get into this class, then I want to do it. And it was an amazing class. We worked with real life clients who had a marketing or advertising challenge, and your team worked all semester to come up with a campaign, how to introduce a product or a solution or a service. And my team had the privilege of working on Hershey's Reese's peanut butter cups, right? So the peanut butter cups, and we were supposed to launch those into the United Kingdom. And yet in the United Kingdom, they hate peanut butter. And so our whole job was to figure out, how do you introduce a product into a country that actually hates a significant component of the product, peanut butter. And then you got judged at the end. So not only did the clients hear your presentation, but advertising agency executives were in the audience judging our presentation. And as a result of our presentation, there were 4 or 5 teams. I received a number of interviews with ad agencies in New York City, and that's how I got my first job with J. Walter Thompson in New York City, all because of that that one class that I decided to take because, again, I didn't think about it at the time, but he said, you're good in marketing. You should think about this. And I thought, well, I should take other classes that would help me get good in marketing just in case. And I took that class, and it ended up leading to my first job.
Wow. I think that a couple of days ago, I spoke to a lady in Finland. Her name's Ulla, and she said that watching for signs. So she had a TED talk also telling people about watching for signs that happen in our life, right? So you not only watching for signs, but you also listen for those advices and take your, you got to follow those advice from that professor to take another class, and that leading to a new territory of your career, leading company through success and running billion-dollar business in terms of M&A and stuff. So it's amazing, Jennifer. And I want to bring you to a journey of excellence and successful in marketing. So if you look back at that journey, all right, and you can share with us some highlights about what make the difference for Jennifer to be really, really different in that field. What would those things be?
I think if I were to look back on my advertising career, why I was successful in that, again, I'll come back to multicultural upbringing. I don't think I would have known it at the time, but when I look back, I'm very right and left-brained. I appreciate creativity. Some would tell me I'm a creative person, but I've had the privilege of working with very creative people. And so in advertising, I was a really good account person. So in advertising, for those who don't know it, you have your creative teams, right? Your art director, your copywriter, the producer for the commercial. They tend to be very creative. They think outside the box. Then you have your account side, where you might have your account planner, your media planner. They're more the prescriptive, let's make sure we have a campaign that's going to get the most eyeballs of our target audience. The account manager, which is what I was directly liaising with the client to make sure that we would deliver the type of creative campaign that would help them sell the most products. But I was very good at not only understanding what the client needed, so I could speak that language, but I also understood what would help a creative sell their campaign. And so I'm thankful, and I would say I attribute that to multicultural sensibilities, to understand you have to speak in each person's language. So I could speak to the creatives in their language, but I could also speak to the clients in their language to figure out how do we find that common ground to make sure that this campaign delivers on the promise for the client that we said it would. And that I would also be able to say to the creatives, I love this idea, it's fun, but it's never going to do what we've promised to the client. So we're going to have to go in a different direction. But I would also say to creatives who had said, oh, this is a dumb idea, let's not pursue it. I would say, no, I think that idea is a great one, but here's how we need to position it. Here's how we need to package it. And so it's interesting because until you asked the question, I don't think I really would have looked back and analyzed it. But I do feel that one of my secret skills is learning people's language, not just their Vietnamese versus French versus English, but also the language that people connect in, that they speak just naturally. And that takes time, and it also takes awareness to appreciate that if I'm speaking with somebody who's finance oriented, I need to speak in numbers. If I'm speaking to a creative person, I need to speak to them visually. Think about how do I frame something so that they can see it. And if I'm, speaking with maybe, I don't know, an account or a research person, it's the data, it's the research, it's much more data driven. And that has served me well.
And there was a definition of that intelligence is right there, but I at the moment I could not recall it. It's not EQ, it's not IQ, it's some form of intelligence. I'll look for that. But go back to your situation. How did you grow that skill and hone that skill to be a powerful tool for you to use and leverage in life?
Well, I don't even think I knew it was a skill or a tool. I just grew up that way. Again, because we spoke French at home and I had a chance to travel from a very young age. I flew to Paris to visit my grandmother and be with her. I think I was 3 years old. I was sent on an airplane, with a little passport holder and everything, by myself. So I think it just came to me naturally. And then when I was at Thunderbird, I had many projects where I would have people from other cultures. I could have someone from Greece and someone from Australia and someone from India all on the same team. It's what I loved about the school. And it made me realize, okay, even though I might think as an American, even though I'm half French, right? I largely grew up in America. I could think, well, this is the way to do it. This is how we have to do it, right? I know I'm the smartest. This is how we do it. But when you're in classrooms where your project teams are from all different cultures, it automatically makes you realize, okay, we're never going to get anything done if we don't listen to each other and then agree, okay, what's the best path forward? And I think that more than anything else, and it's what I'm an advisor to Thunderbird students now, I tell them consistently, if you want to stand out as a candidate for a job, highlight all of the projects that you've led where you were forced to listen to other people's voices and how you got consensus to get that project done and moving forward, because that is a superpower, particularly now. It doesn't have to be multicultural. I mean, you could be at a company where you're just talking to the IT team and the project team and the marketing team. How do you have everybody feel heard and listened to, but equally feel invested in the way you go forward? And I do think that that is a superpower. I learned it at Thunderbird because of multicultural things, but I've seen how that transfers into many different instances beyond just cultural differences.
The way I see it, Jennifer, is because of the dream that you had when you were 8 years old, right? And you wanted to become a person that bridging the gap between culture, between America and France. And you wanted to become an ambassador for France. So that dream of being a person of value and bridging the gap between differences, that leading you to school where you have different people and different background, cultures, and different race, right? And then you becoming a connecting point to bridging the gap between different people in here to get into to a common goal for everybody. And same as work. So you've been living a life as the ambassador way before you came to NEWNESS and live in France, right?
Yeah, thank you. I hadn't really thought about it, but that's true. I was probably an ambassador well before that.
Yeah. So you mentioned one word in this conversation a lot is the word I think. All right. Mm-hmm. And my wife and I, we've been on the quest to help people to think better, because today we see a lot of things that are distracting us, and our ability to think has been diminishing for so many reasons. And if we can ask, whoever joined the program and share their ideas of how they expand their ability to think, so people can listen, can pick something to practice on a daily basis, that can help them to expand their ability to think. So Jennifer, for you, how have you been growing your own ability to think over the years?
Oh gosh, in so many ways. I left a very successful corporate career. I had reached, for me, the pinnacle when I realized, okay, I'm not going to be ambassador of France. When I was in advertising for 15 years. And I thought at the time, at some point, I want to run an ad agency and show how to do it right. Because at the time, so this was in the 90s, ad agencies had been built up because of creativity, big ideas. But ad agencies were starting to change because, and this is not trying to be harsh about finance, but they wanted templatized versions of campaigns. Oh, this campaign was successful. Let's just do this over and over again. When ad agencies had blossomed because of big ideas and creativity. And so I highlight that only because I saw that shifting. And so I moved into NAVTech after 15 years in advertising, and I moved abroad, as I mentioned, with my husband and two children. And in that regard, it's interesting. I feel like as you pointed out, I hadn't even thought about it, that I bridged the gap, and I helped my European colleagues understand how to sell in their ideas to my American colleagues. So I was a bridge. Now that you've said that, I'm thinking about, wow, I think I was. I didn't even really think about it, like all the ways I did that. But what I would say to the question of thinking, one thing my father in particular, I would say role modeled, is he was always learning, always being open to other cultures, other people, and role modeling that behavior. It's one thing to say it, but we would go to parties, or we would go out to events with my dad, and he would have all these people who he met and knew, and he would introduce me or my sister, and I just felt I was always learning because he was always learning, and he was open to other cultures, and it was part of him being in international sales. But I think he role modeled, don't have a myopic view, always be learning and curious. And so for me, if that is your nature, and even if it isn't, I think that is something you can develop. Being open and curious, it makes your life so much more fulfilling, because you give off energy that you are open and curious. You invited me to Vietnam and you hadn't even interviewed me yet, right? So I say that because I think people can tell when you have that kind of energy, that you want to taste the food, you want to learn the lingo, you want phrases, but you also want to share your own culture and be that bridge. At least that's how I've always been, and it's made for a really, I would say, luscious life. And I'm thankful. I think my children have picked that up as well, and they love travel and they love visiting other cultures. And to me, that is the thing that scares me the most about our current world, that we would become closed off from each other, when I feel that this is we should continue to be open to each other.
So from winning career in advertising and marketing and communications, moving to M&A experts, and that is different territory again, and you're really successful on that one. Tell us on what occasion that made you to go into that path and take into the different direction like this.
Well, it's why I said to you, I'm probably a good example of multiple pivots, because I never planned to be doing what I'm doing now. NAVTech was acquired by Nokia, if you remember Nokia phones, back in 2008. Wasn't quite successful for a variety of reasons, but that would, if someone were to ask me my origin story, it was that experience when NAVTech was acquired by Nokia. Subsequent to that, I experienced two more multi-billion-dollar acquisitions at two other companies. And I remember by the third M&A deal, I thought to myself, there has got to be a better way of doing M&A, where the people part of M&A, where you preserve the value that you have created, because the people in the company are invested. They understand and recognize their value. They appreciate where the company is going and the role that they can play in it. Because that hadn't been my experience, and I've been on all sides of the deal equation, and I thought, how do we overcome that? Because after three multi-billion-dollar acquisition experiences, I didn't see it happening naturally. The consultants who came in always had a certain way of doing things and treating people, and I thought we're undermining the potential value of this deal if we don't prepare the leaders for how to lead people through change and uncertainty.
Mm, wow. Not even here. Better way, right? So earlier when you do, when you're in the management, you say, okay, you want to do it a different way, that make how to do it right. So that way, and through the M&A, through M&As you've been doing, you've been going through, and you say, okay, there must be a better way of doing that. Where that mindset came from?
You know, I wish I could explain it to you. I don't. I feel like it just became a mission. I wish I had a better explanation. I think because I had cultural sensitivities already, and in each of those instances, and if you any research that you read about mergers and acquisitions, one of the common issues that undermines the success of two companies coming together is cultural misalignment. The cultures don't get along. And so I think I already, because of my cultural sensitivity, already had a understanding that if cultures don't align, so I'll use the Navtech Nokia. Navtech was a B2B, business to business company, meaning we didn't work directly with consumers, we worked with other businesses. Nokia was a phone company. They worked directly with consumers, but two very different cultures. And that became a tension point. And I was already very sensitive to that because of my background. And so I do, now that you've asked that questions, I think that it was my background that made me more alert to those challenges and tension points. And so it's what compelled me to write a book. It's what compelled me to pivot from being a marketing executive to working in mergers and acquisitions to advise leaders on how to lead your organization through the change and uncertainty and the emotional journey that your company will experience when it's going through a merger or an acquisition.
I want to bring you to the first conversation that you had with CEOs or with leaders about how to do M&A right. All right. So back then, you might have the idea of how to do it better, how to get better for everybody through, and like the Jennifer's way, put it that way. Okay.
Yeah.
But if you never had the M&A background onto your background, except that you've been on the transition in the M&A process, right? So it's really hard to persuade those CEOs who maybe already having tons of M&As in their background already, through their decisions already. So how did you persuade a new idea to a person that been there for so long, been doing that for so long, having that expertise running in their veins, right? How could Jennifer do that?
Well, I remember the conversation distinctly. It's when I was researching and interviewing CEOs for my book. I wasn't even sure I was going to write a book, but I thought I needed to do research. Was I the only person that had this emotional reaction to all the change that was happening around me? And so one CEO I interviewed for my book, he asked me almost, I don't want to say with disdain, because he was very gracious, but he asked me, like, why are you writing a book about mergers and acquisitions? A leadership book about mergers and acquisitions. Haven't enough books about mergers and acquisitions been written? Essentially was his question. And I said to him, because I'm tired of seeing smart and talented people lose their way and doubt their value when their company is acquired or they merge with another company. And I saw too many times very smart and talented people feel valueless, that they no longer could contribute because they weren't clear on what the metrics were. And so I'm writing this book, I told him, to help people understand that you still have value, but it is your job to clearly understand what the new metrics of success are and to show, not only know, but show your value in every way that you can to demonstrate how you will contribute to the company's future. And if you believe that now this new company, because it is a new company when it goes through a merger and acquisition, if you believe these are my values, this is what value I can contribute, if you believe they no longer align with that company, don't wait for that company to tell you. You need to go to a company that will value what you will bring to it. Because I equally saw people who would become despondent. They stayed stuck in denial. And that's not good for the company and not for you in your career. So I gave him a much shorter answer, but I'm giving you more context. And so his answer to me was, oh, now I understand. He said, that's brilliant. People don't talk about that. He said, particularly men. He said, yet I have seen in each of the deals that we've been part of, when we don't focus on the people piece and the emotional aspect, that's when our deals don't go as well. So I'm thrilled that you're writing this book, and I'm honored to contribute to it. And that for me was what made me realize, because it wasn't just that CEO, it was just that was one of my earlier conversations that made me realize, okay, I'm on to something. There's something here that will help leadership in the future to do a better job through the change and uncertainty that inevitably occur when a company goes through a merger or an acquisition.
Beautiful, beautiful. What took you so long to start Rewire?
Sorry, you got cut off.
I wonder what took you so long to start to write that book. It's been, like 6 years ago it's introduced, but it's been a long process. You can write your own book for a long time, right? So when did you have the idea to write that book?
Honestly, I think it was, this is going to sound crazy. It was a spirit that just said, you need to write this book, because and I've heard this from other authors, the book idea wouldn't go away. I was still interviewing to be a chief marketing officer. And in my head, I thought, I'm just going to get this book done and get it out there, but I'm going to go on and be a chief marketing officer. And it wasn't until, as I was interviewing more CEOs who kept saying, what are you doing besides the book? And I would joke with them and I would say, do you know how hard it is to write a book? Like, I was very proud I was writing a book. I'm going to go off and be a CMO. I'm just getting this book out there. But more than one CEO said, well, this book won't have the impact that it has the potential to have if you don't build a business around it. You need to consult people. You need to help people think about how to do this better. It won't just happen through a book. And I kept getting that question, and in the summer of 2018, I thought I had cancer. Fortunately, it turned out that I did not, but I remember thinking in that moment how sad I would be if I passed away and I hadn't done something more with the book, that I hadn't become that consultant that all these CEOs kept saying to me I should be. And it was scary because I was doing very well in my corporate career, but it was a calling. I have no other explanation for it. I thought this book idea wouldn't go away. And then once I got the book out and was writing it, it flowed. And I had very positive reactions to the book. And so now what I'm doing was never on my career path, but I do feel it's what I was always meant to do.
Yeah, but Steve Jobs saying, like, you start connecting the dot backwards and you start to see the path. Right? And the book is one of the ideas in the book, Big Magic.
Yes, yep, I've read that book. Absolutely. I completely, I agree. I feel like the genius visited me and I was ready to receive it. And if I were to try and write that book today, I don't think I could. I was visited by the genius with that book idea, because my book has cartoon characters. on a Spotify playlist. And
Wow.
and it's a combination of creativity that I don't know where it came from. I'm just thankful that it came and that I captured it and I wrote it.
Wow. Wow. And the good thing is that you let the ideas sit with you for a little longer, right? The ideas from those CEOs you interviewed, they told you that, hey, the book, if you only publish it without you not consulting others how to use the book, how to live with that, and so it's not, it's not going to deliver the best impact it could be, and you let that idea sit with you for a little longer, and then you decide to go and your own company. And I think it's really great to do that, Jennifer, because on the path to become another CMO, then you have a big paycheck, you have a big compensation plan, and it's stable for corporate life, right?
Right.
Not really anything is corporate, right? It's stable when versus being an entrepreneur yourself, and I salute you for that. So bring me to the first client being the book, okay? Because everything is from 0 to 1 is the hardest thing. So now bring it to the moment that you close your first deal and have a CEO with a whisperer methodology, put it that way, right? So how did you feel?
Sorry, you got cut off. So can you just repeat the question?
The question is, I want to bring you to your first time winning a client
Oh, okay.
as Day1 Ready, okay? And because we want to celebrate success, and it's really hard for moving from 0 to 1, okay? So that first one is very important. So tell us, the context of that deal, or how you feel on that day.
Honestly, before I even won a client, for me, the greatest validation came. My book was not even out, but I published an article with Harvard Business Review. And the article was about avoiding us versus them thinking. And it was based on the research that I had done for my book. But my book, I was still in the process of finishing writing it. And I had the great fortune of working with an editor who wanted specifically a different take on mergers and acquisitions. And the reason why that sticks out in my mind more than anything is the reaction to that article was huge. I had CEOs, I had human resource leaders, I had people who I knew in marketing who were like, what are you doing? You're in mergers and acquisitions? Like, why did you stop being in marketing? Like, what happened to you? But they were really, the article did very well. And for me, that proof of concept, it was validation that I needed, that I wasn't being crazy. The reaction to that article and the research that I had done proved to me that my point of view was not crazy, that there was something to it, and I just needed to be smart about getting it out there and repeating it. So for me, that even beyond the first client, that was a huge sign of success, by being able to get into Harvard Business Review.
Beautiful, beautiful. Jennifer, everything that you've been touching, every work you've been doing, is always turn out a success. And you need to teach our audience the secret behind that. So if you write a book, it's a best-selling. If you write an article, it's becoming like a well-known article. And if you're leading a company in the marketing, is always leading to success, right? So teach us what kind of skill set or way of doing that can lead us into that direction.
It's hard. I appreciate you saying everything has been a success. I'm talking to you about the end results. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot, and you have to go in particularly if you are pivoting, if you are changing and you are going into a whole new area, you have to really, really believe in your idea, because there will be many, many instances where you will wonder, why am I doing this? Why did I pivot in this direction? What was I thinking? I'm crazy, and I say this even as someone who, right, I just shared, I got into HBR. I've been hired by Fortune 500 and middle market companies. Yet there are moments, particularly when you have a lot of no's in a row, no, we can't do that, or no, that doesn't make sense, or no, we don't need your help. You think, wow, maybe that's it. That's all I'm ever going to get out of this idea, even though I think it's important. And you have to not only be resilient, but you have to believe in your idea and have the runway to pursue it. I think the other big lesson that I learned was, your timeline is your timeline. No one else's timeline matches with yours. So you have to be patient. And if you don't have the ability to be patient, right? You have to feed your children. You have to, buy groceries or buy a house, right? You have to always, your passion, purpose, and profit, all three need to intersect. And you need to really be crystal clear if what you are doing will solve a problem that other people have that they are willing to pay for. And so that for me has been just a constant reminder, because I could look like I'm successful, but there have been many, many times at different points. That's what's so funny, or I shouldn't say funny, it's interesting. I had that HBR article. And I thought, great. And then I had a big speaking engagement. I thought, super, I've hit the jackpot. And then easily, I think 3 or 4 months where I had a lot of great conversations and they didn't turn into anything. And I thought, but I've been successful. I've had all these great things. So for me, I had to learn that my timeline was not anyone else's timeline, and that things can take time and you have to be patient. And thankfully, I was in a position where I could be patient to let people catch up to, what I was teaching and believing was important for a leader going through transformation or a merger and acquisition.
Let's say patience is virtue, right? And in the world, always demanding for speed, faster, quicker, and you have to put patience as on the test like that for months. Oh, yeah. What message did you talk to you to carry the energies of not letting those waiting time to let that idea, let that drive cool down?
Because so many people who read my articles, have listened to me on podcasts, were in the audience. I'm a speaker as well. So many people said, you captured exactly how I felt. You gave words to the emotions that I had, and I didn't know how to articulate them. Thank you. And you inspired me to figure out what I need to do to move forward. And I've had that happen so often that keeps me going. I know I'm not crazy. I know that there is a role for what I focus on. And I'm privileged that I've had companies find me, that they have said, oh my gosh, you help leadership through, and not just mergers and acquisitions. I mean, that's my strength because that's my area of expertise. But I've had companies say, will you just help us because we're going through transformation and our leaders need to be developed. They need to learn, how do you lead a team through a lot of change and uncertainty? But it takes time, right? You have to get your message out there. And so I'm thankful for all the people who repeatedly said how much I helped them. I had a man tell me I saved his marriage. I've had many people say how thankful they were because I was able to help them understand why they were feeling the way they were feeling. And that for me is that's more than money and compensation. That, when I'm sure you've had the same experience, when you've had an impact on someone's life to help them for the better, that's what keeps you going.
At least for today, I know that I have some impact on Jennifer's for her to have a good time, right? And reflection time is important for us. A few questions left for this conversation. Is that okay to pursue continue? Because you still have 10 minutes. Sure. So you mentioned people, and definitely you met a lot of people in your life, and you are meeting many, many more amazing people on your life, right? So I wonder, because then they say that the value of one of us is the value of the 5 people we spend most of the time with. So for Jennifer, who are the people that you put onto your inner circle? Who are the 5 people that you're gonna do that?
Well, this may sound boring to you, but my husband and my 2 children. My children have taught me, and I hope they don't listen to this because then they'll hold it over my head. But I have a daughter. She's 24, and a son who will be 21 in a couple of months. And from when they were little, just observing how my daughter approached things, how my son approached things, it made me a better manager. I still had a corporate career, but it helped me realize how much girls, react to certain situations one way and how boys react to that same situation differently. That, you started the question about nature versus nurture. So it helped me realize, oh, that's just how boys are. That's how girls are. It made me a better manager. And even now, the 2 of them, when I need a different perspective, and it's not just, hey, someone your age, what do you think? I just want a different perspective. They are always so good at helping me see the simpler side of things, not to overcomplicate. And so my children have helped me, and my husband, more than anything. We've gone back and forth in our careers. He's had a time where he had to be the breadwinner so that I could write a book. When we moved to France for my job, he left his law practice for a bit to help me with the children and moving in and all of that. So we've gone back and forth. And I have to say, to me, that's been such a strong part of the relationship, because we both appreciate how hard it is when you're the main breadwinner and the other person is trying to build a business or keep a business or do something else. And when that goes back and forth, you have an appreciation for both sides are working. They might be working on different things, but both sides are working in that partnership. And for me, that's been incredibly important, because you can't complain. You can't say, well, do you know how hard I work? Well, yeah, I do know how hard you work because I did the same thing, like we go back and forth in those responsibilities, and it makes you a better partner.
Wow. You mentioned in here, it connects me to the word observation, observe, right? And there's only a few things new under the sun, and being able to see the differences. Like you saw the difference between girls were and men were, and those making you having the ability to lead better, to manage people better. And that very same thing happened to almost everybody. I can see my friends, my girls, my friends who are women, and my friends who are men, but from my observation, I'm not able to see how it's connected to the work I do that can help me to lead better. So our skill to observe is really different from one person to the next person, and that little difference also leading to a huge change in the career, in the life, and the way that we see things, right? So what advice would you give us to become a better observer?
I feel like I'm a broken record. The first thought that comes to mind is just being curious. I I consider myself a smart person, but I never think I'm the smartest person in the room. I know I'm not the smartest person in the room. And I have found that I was curious when I was little because I had to be. I had to listen to learn another language. And because I'm thankful for that when I was younger, that's just always been part of me and who I am. And it sounds trite and maybe a little cliched, but I do think that when you stay curious, it keeps you from judging others. You just stay curious because you want to learn. And the more you learn, the more you connect. And that's really been, I have seen that. That's been my life. And it's helped me to connect with many, many more people than I ever would have imagined, because I approach it with curiosity.
Beautiful. Two last questions. If I travel with you back to when you were 8 years old, okay, and you are going to talk to that little Jennifer when she had the idea of becoming the ambassador to France, and you are telling her about the life that she is going to have in the future. So what advice or what message do you want to give to that little Jennifer?
Go for it. You know, I'm thankful. When I told my father, it's a long story how ambassador of France, I wanted to go to Thunderbird, all of that came at a dinner party. My father would bring me to dinner parties because sometimes they couldn't find a babysitter, and I had a backgammon game. And so he would put me in the corner, he would send people over to play with me. And the grandson of one of the party hosts, he was someone who came over and played backgammon with me, and he went to Thunderbird. And so it was while playing that he said, wow, if you speak French, you should go to Thunderbird. And so that's what got onto my mind. He said, particularly if you want to be ambassador to France. And so I think for me, I was fortunate. No one discouraged me. No one said, that's silly. Why would you want to be ambassador to France? And so I would say my advice is to Jennifer, not only to go for it, but equally to be a role model for other people, to be encouraging to other people. I see too often children can be discouraged from pursuing something because they're told that's silly, that won't make enough money, that you won't be successful doing that. And no one said that to me when I was little. And I didn't become ambassador of France. I figured out on my own, okay, what should I be? What would I become? But that confidence that I was given at a young age, because no one discouraged me from that, was invaluable. And so I would say that's the advice I would give little Jennifer, is go for it, but also be a role model for other people. Encourage other people to pursue their dreams as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. My last question, and it made me think a lot before I asked the last question. So I'll ask this. We've been traveling the past. We know what you've been doing now, and I'm thankful for you to share the beautiful story in this conversation. So last question, I want to preserve it for the future. All right. Is there anything that you are working on that you're exciting you want to share with us so that we are going to celebrate with Jennifer in advance?
Oh, yeah, there is something I'm working on that I've not had success with, so I will be open and upfront about that. I would like to have an M&A Center of Excellence where it's like an executive education program, ideally with a university, where how mergers and acquisitions is taught is not just financially driven, but equally has culture and change management as part of the curriculum, so that the executives who go through the course understand that it's not just the finance and the operations and the strategy, but it's the people and the relationships and the human component of a merger or an acquisition that will make or break your deal. And if I do believe that if more executives understand that piece of not just mergers and acquisitions, that's just my area, but in any company's transformation, that if you don't bring on the people and you don't have a strategy for how to help them be part of the new future, the new vision for the company, that you will have a hard time being successful. So my M&A Center of Excellence, if you can help me manifest that, that would be lovely, because that's what I see as the next opportunity. I realized actually in working with Marshall Goldsmith, right? What I'm working on is the symptom of a problem, and it will continue to be a problem. And so you have to go upstream in order to solve the problem. And for me, going upstream is how you educate people, either in graduate school or an executive education program, for how they should be thinking about what does success look like when a business goes through a transformation.
Wow. I know it here because you have the mindset of how to do things right. And I believe that the M&A Center of Excellence will happen, and because it's in your DNA, it's in your determination already to make it right. You will have a way to do it, and I feel lucky for those employees who work under those CEOs that have been taught by Jennifer to know how to do M&A in the correct way, that have people to see its opportunity, to enjoy the transitions, and then to thrive in the world of constant change in business, right? So Jennifer, thanks a lot for the opportunity to knowing you in person, to having you on the show, and having all the wisdom shared in this conversation. I would love to see you in person one day, and I believe that day will happen. Okay?
We shall make it happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. Say hello to your family for us, please.
Will do. Thank you.
Bye-bye, my friend. Bye-bye.